Welcome to today's Florida Food Forum. The forum is hosted by our policy committee of the Florida Food Policy Council. I am Erica Hall. I'm currently the chair of the council and the host of the forum today. I'm so excited to introduce these two speakers. One, because they're both Jedis at what they do. You all know my term, Jedi. They both Jedis at what they do. And I'm so honored to be able to work with both of them on a regular basis. I learned so much from the two of them about this work. So I'm very excited. So our topic this month is building resilient communities through cooperatives. And with us from the council, besides myself, is Kendra Love, who will handle the technical aspects of the forum. So before I introduce the speakers, I would first like to do a land acknowledgement and just give acknowledgement to our Indigenous as well as our African ancestors. So why is Indigenous land acknowledgement important? It's a way, territory acknowledgement is a way that people insert an awareness of Indigenous presence and land rights in everyday life. It's important to understand the long-standing history that has brought us to reside on the lands we live and to seek to understand our place within that history. So do you all know what Indigenous lands you live and work on? If you do, put it in the chat. If you don't, there's a link here that helps you find it. I'm currently located in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the Indigenous lands of the Seminole, Tocobaga, and the Calusa tribes. So that's our land acknowledgement, and that's our territory acknowledgement. So with that, again, very excited to welcome our two speakers, Erica Hardison, who is the board president of One Community Grocery Co-op, and Lou Murray, co-chair of the Manasota Food Action Council for both Sarasota and Manatee Counties here in Florida. A document introducing our speakers can be found on our website. Again, if you haven't, and if you're not familiar with their background and their bios, please take a moment to take a look at that on our website. In just a moment, I will turn it over to our fabulous guest speakers who will present on our topic today. Following the presentations, we will open up for a Q&A with our speakers. But before we get started, we'd like to remind everyone that the Florida Food Policy Council relies on donations, memberships, and sponsorships for our organization. We are a chartered, not-for-profit, dedicated to advancing the health and security of the Florida food system. Please support us through the donation link on our website or by becoming a member. For more information about sponsorship or membership, reach out to us at any time. So I am pleased to recognize our sponsors of today's forum, which is One Community Grocery Co-op, Tangelo, Feed, and J. Haskins Law. One Community Co-op is located in St. Petersburg. Their vision is to build a self-determined, community-owned cooperative grocery store that provides fresh, healthy, and nutritionally dense food and supports the physical, mental, and economic health of our community. The contact, of course, is their president, Erica Hardison, who you'll hear from later. Our next sponsor is Tangelo, which is a food benefit platform where organizations, agencies, and institutions can utilize local farms and producers efficiently. Tangelo is sponsoring this forum on behalf of Lou Murray, who is our other speaker, and you'll hear more about the connection between Tangelo, Lou, and all of this work later. The contact for Tangelo is Chris Woods. Our last two sponsors are Feed, which stands for Food for Health, the Environment, Economy, and Democracy, based in Fort Lauderdale. They do food systems planning, advocacy, urban planning, GIS mapping, and education about food systems and healthy communities. The contact is Anthony Oliveri. And finally, J. Haskins Law, located in Tampa. empowers communities with the risk management tools needed to exercise food sovereignty. Jesse Haskins is the contact. So with that being said, again, our topic today will focus on how communities can be strengthened through cooperatives. We will first hear from Erica Hardison, and then we'll hear from Lou Murray. So Erica, please take it away.
All right. Hello and good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for coming today and participating in this food forum. I want to give thanks to the Florida Food Policy Council for giving us the ability to have a space to talk about this and other issues that affect food in Florida and policy throughout the nation. So I'm going to go ahead and hope that my screen share goes through properly. Again, we're talking about building communities through, building resilient communities through through cooperatives. Going to move. And what we're going to talk about really is what is a food co-op? Why food co-ops? We'll talk about some examples and then we'll have some brief questions and answers. So what's a co-op? The International Cooperative Alliance defines a cooperative or a co-op as an autonomous association of persons united to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. In other words, co-ops are created by people who have a specific need and are willing to work together to operate and organize a company to meet that need. And I emphasize that co-ops are a business, and we know that businesses are inundated with policies, especially, I know there are some people who are not from Florida on this call, but in some states, the business policies enable co-ops to work a little more effectively and easily in that state. What types of businesses are co-ops? Many of you may be shopping at co-ops and not know it. They can be in agriculture, insurance, financial institutions such as credit unions and things like that are co-ops, grocery co-ops, which we are building in St. Petersburg, education, healthcare, housing. There are sewing co-ops. There are art cooperatives in states. There are a number of different ways that people can participate in cooperative work. So if you have a business, it can be a co-op. If you have a business that desires, or if there's a group of people that desire to open a business that is for the benefit of the community, it can be a co-op. Co-ops operate on 7 principles. The first is open and voluntary membership, which it simply means that anyone can join the co-op who agrees to the principles and the values of the co-op and agrees to participate by following these 7 principles. Democratic member control. Co-ops are run democratically. Like some businesses just have a president or a CEO who makes the decisions, or a sole proprietor who says, this is what it's going to be. That's the way it is, and there's no input from anyone else. That does not happen in a co-op. The co-ops are usually 1 member, 1 vote. We'll talk just in a minute about the different types of co-ops, but it is a democratic situation. So it's a situation where people have to come together and vote and make a decision. It's not where one person makes the decision. Cooperation among cooperatives. Co-ops are members and I shouldn't say members, but co-ops are a part of a larger network of co-ops internationally. So we try to help each other out. So if there is one co-op that is in need of something, oftentimes we call it P6 because this is actually Principle 6. is that co-ops will come to the need of other co-ops. Autonomy and independence, co-ops are autonomous. They're not beholden to any government or any particular person's interest. It's for the interest of the community. Member economic participation. So everyone in the co-op is expected to contribute to the co-op through usually an equity payment or invest money in the co-op, because co-ops work usually through a mutual aid principle. So we are all here helping one another, and that requires us to all help one another through economic and contributing money. Concern for the community is the best one to me, because, and this is one of the reasons I got involved in co-ops, because when you have concern for the community, co-ops are not here to divest in the community or take things out of the community. They really are here to pour into the community, use all the assets that a community has to develop and grow. So when we talk about concern for the community, that is a main concern of co-ops. It's not the profit, it's not margin, it's how can we serve and make this community better. And education, training, and information. Co-ops have a commitment to provide education for its members. So a lot of times in a co-op, you will see educational series on how to do something depending on what type of co-op it is or the sector that the co-op exists in, whether it be a credit union that offers education on improving your credit, how to get a loan, how to become credit ready, how to get loans and things like that. That is considered education. In some grocery co-ops, you'll see cooking classes, you'll see classes related to people's health and things like that. So keep in mind that education is a top priority in co-ops, because once we educate, we can then have a community that is uplifted and brings us to a point where we are helping ourselves. There are different types of co-ops. And so when we talk about co-ops, there are different types. So the first one is a worker co-op. We have consumer co-ops and we have purchasing co-ops. And I would like to say this as well, is that sometimes co-ops are kind of hybrid. So you may have a worker / consumer co-op. And I'll go into a little bit about these into detail. Worker cooperatives are owned by the people who work for the company. So for instance, if you had a plumbing co-op, the people who are working, the plumbers, are actually the owners of the co-op, and workers contribute to the co-op through their labor and do work for the organization. Worker co-ops can be in any industry, but they usually are in retail services. So in terms of food, when we have a grocery co-op, if the workers are owners, this would be a worker co-op. In some instances, like I said, it's usually more of a worker consumer model or a hybrid model. So when we talk about consumer-owned co-ops are owned by the customers who purchase goods and services from the co-ops. There are a lot of grocery co-ops that operate off of this model. A lot of times people will use the word cooperative in food service or grocery co-ops, and it's really like a buy-in club. So when we think buy-in clubs, that's like Sam's and Costco's, where you have to be a member to enter. And so that is not true for consumer grocery co-ops. You don't have to be a member to enter and buy, but you do have to be a member usually to get special discounts and to have a say in what goes into the store, have a say in, you know, what is done with the profits that the store makes and things like that. Purchasing co-ops are typically made up of several small businesses, and those small businesses have joined together so they can improve their purchasing power and kind of leverage that in their industry. But like I said, co-ops are not just solely existent in, co-ops are not only like worker co-ops, consumer co-ops, or purchasing co-ops. And many times you can have a hybrid depending on the group that forms. Again, it is a democratic process, and the group that forms decides what that is. So when we talk about why we want to be a part of a co-op, it's really because we want to be part of something bigger, something sustainable, something that is a solution. So when we talk about why you would want to be part of a co-op, you know, there are several reasons. A lot of times it's the purpose. Co-ops for purpose, they help us to realize what we can do economically together versus individually. They help us to really solidify and sustain our cultural values. There are co-ops that, you know, that serve a particular purpose in maintaining, for instance, a cultural cooking style, a cultural way of doing work. And they also help meet social needs. So when you think about why, you have to think about the social needs of the organization and the surrounding community. For instance, I live in a community that is a food insecure area. There are several census tracts that have been deemed food deserts, even though I don't like to use that term, but they're food insecure areas, and grocery stores don't want to take on the risk. So as a co-op and as a community, we can absorb that risk, own it together, and benefit the community. And there are several benefits in terms of co-ops. Co-ops really give people access to services that they may not receive because they are owned by people in the community and have that caring piece. They help businesses become sustainable and build resilience. There's a way that some co-ops can be moved from just being, if an owner owns the business and decides it's a family-owned business and the kids don't want it, but the owner has great workers who love working there, who want to continue the business can be turned into a co-op or converted into a co-op. And many people use that model in terms of making that happen. Their co-ops have a real commitment to the community. So versus, like I said, where I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, there have been many co-ops that have left, or excuse me, not co-ops, many grocery stores that have come and gone in a particular area because they couldn't make the margins or the profits that they want to. So those big box giants didn't have a commitment to the community. In a co-op, the members, the owners, the community really has a commitment. The democratic governance can empower people to participate in other ways. One of the things that I like to say is co-ops usually, when people get involved in co-ops, they may join as just a member. They come in and they just want to shop. They may get involved in the startup process and say, oh, I'm just here to learn. And as they're learning, they're becoming and getting trained as leaders. And then they're able to take part in the democratic process and enter it in different arenas, like maybe city council, maybe a mayoral race, maybe a Senate seat in our state or in the national government. Co-ops really help to provide equality, equity, and inclusion in areas where people are not giving a chance. Co-ops can, again, come in and say, listen, we know we're here to help. We are not here to tell you what you need. We're here to listen, to see what the need is, and get community members involved so that they can move and progress forward and help the need be resolved. There are several other things that I don't know how I am doing on time. So I'm going to stop sharing and go ahead, and I think I can ask questions. I'm not sure where I'm going from here. I apologize.
It's okay. I think there was one question in the
I
chat.
can't see the chat. Sorry.
That is good for you to answer before we go on. From Rebecca Schmidt. It says, is or can a cooperative be considered or filed as a nonprofit?
That is one of the kind of iffy questions. Usually, like in the state of Florida, we don't have the best cooperative laws. So we don't yet have a way to incorporate as a cooperative in the state of Florida. So many people or many organizations who form co-ops start as nonprofits, and then they either incorporate in another state that has more friendly cooperative laws, or they transition into a for-profit business, and then the board goes on from there. But thank you, Rebecca, that's a good question. And I see there's a question in the chat, how can someone join one community grocery co-op? Someone can join one community grocery co-op by going to our Facebook, and I will put that in the chat in a minute. I'm a little challenged because I got multiple screens going on here and I'm trying to stay on this one. But yes, you can go to our Facebook page and there'll be information there, or you can contact me and I'll put my email information in the chat and then you can join.
And let me just add, thank you for that great presentation, but let me just add that if people want to reach out to you, not just about joining your co-op, but as a subject matter expert, you're also available for, consultation if people want to know in their respective regions how you go about it, who the cooperative boards, as you explained, FCI, and you're such an incredible resource for that. So if people also want to know more about the cooperative theory of change in itself, I would suggest you all reach out to her as well, as she puts her information in the chat.
Right, and I just want to touch on something. And so when I said that P6 or cooperatives helping co-ops, like cooperatives are a network of businesses that share these 7 cooperative principles. So you're not just out there on your own. There's a network of people who can help, who will help guide you. And if you need any information about those, please, when I put my information, please reach out to me, or you can try and reach out to me now, and then I will contact you. And there is another question, does one community grocery co-op have an online sales platform? Is that something that is relevant in co-op stores? I will say we are a startup co-op, so we don't have a physical store in place at the moment. So we do not have an online sales platform, but many co-ops, they operate just like regular grocery stores. So they do have, once they're open and in business and selling things, they do have an online platform so people can order groceries, people can have groceries delivered. I will say that many co-ops came through in the pandemic, because one of the things that co-ops like to do is co-ops love local. And so they can help to incubate local businesses. Most co-ops try to source, especially, and I'm speaking here particularly into grocery co-ops, but try to source their products locally. A lot of times co-ops have in their process of ordering and getting items, they have where if it comes from a certain distance, they try to buy within that distance from the stores to support the local economy. Some of the things I didn't touch on were that co-ops people who work at co-ops tend to have higher wages, better healthcare, stay longer at their positions in the co-op. So again, it's not just a grocery store. We're developing an economy of people who are sustaining their communities. So people don't just shop at the co-op and then go home and forget about it. Maybe their kids work at the co-op. Maybe their husband or wife works at the co-op. Maybe they're on the board of the co-op. Maybe they teach a class at the co-op that helps small businesses start up and get their products. Like a lot of people learned through the pandemic that their garden was their best friend. And really, we're making some great stuff. Co-ops help people to develop those products so they don't just stay in somebody's home where they would like to be an entrepreneur or a business owner and they just don't know how. Co-ops lend to helping them do that. So
Yes, thank you for that. And I just wanted to add, as you were speaking, that that's what makes cooperatives so important, is the ownership piece. And you kept hitting on that. It's not just about you're going somewhere to shop. When people have ownership, it gives them a sense of pride. It gives them a sense of community, and ownership brings confidence, and it brings consumer confidence and economic confidence. So there's so much wrapped into that. Community ownership is key. Aurelie made an excellent point. Thank you, Aurelie.
Thank you. Hey, Aurelie.
Another supporter of the council and a partner and friend. She made an excellent point. It's so important for that. And the person that just asked the question about the online sales, as Lou gets into his presentation, again, he's sponsored by Tangelo and their online platform. So maybe Lou can go into that, how some cooperatives work in conjunction with an online platform to bolster and make their cooperative sales outside of being in a place. They bolster their online presence.
Right. And Amanda just asked the question in the chat saying, am I saying that co-ops help people grow food? I won't say that all co-ops or all grocery co-ops help people grow food, but a lot of times what happens is cooperatives will have educational classes that may be anything from gardening to how to control your diabetes through lifestyle. And through those classes, those are what help people and empower people and give people the connection they need. Because again, this is like a neighborhood grocery store. A lot of times what happens with co-ops is they become, or grocery co-ops, I will say in particular, they become a physical hub where people can go and find out information. It's just like the watering hole. Where do I need to go to find out what's going on in this community? Well, they go to the co-op. The co-op gives classes. Somebody has an idea, or a member or a shopper has an idea, they can give that to the co-op. Versus if you have an idea and you go into Publix, there's no place for you to really say, hey, as an individual, this is what I would like to do. But a grocery co-op gives you a space and place where you can say, well, I have this idea and I need some help with it. Well, guess what? There may be some other people who have that same idea and they help. So it becomes a learning hub, a convener, an investor in the community, and really just empowers people in the community to do their best work.
And thank you for your great presentation. I'm sure we'll have more questions after Lou, our next presenter, finishes. Now I'd like to turn it over to Lou Murray. As we said, he is the co-chair of the Manasota Food Action Council for both Sarasota and Manatee Counties. His presentation also will collaborate and connect to a lot of what Erica presented. Lou's gonna talk about his work around community Ebt farmers markets and why cooperatives are so important in that work. So Lou Murray, take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say thank you, Erica, for allowing me to talk with you today and talk to this great council. And you're doing some great work throughout the community, and your encouragement it means a lot to me. It really does. And the things that we're doing in Manatee and Sarasota County. But I just want to start off by saying that what Erica was talking about as well, and that is we wasn't always underserved communities. You know, back in the 40s and 50s, we were a self-contained minority communities, especially Black communities were self-contained communities. We had our own grocery stores. We had what we called the fruit man would come down and set up a fruit stand and even bring fruit to your house. Our druggists were from the community. We had our own doctor's office who came out of Meharry, which is a Black college. So we had our own doctor's office, and we were pretty much self-contained. Our prices may not have been competitive, but it was convenient, and we were self-contained at that time. So the point is, we were not always underserved community. We became underserved when integration came. I mean, it was good on one hand, but it was bad on the other. And after that, 90% of the money that we create in our community start going out. And any community that has 90% of the money that it produces going out will become a ghetto or blighted area. I don't care what community it's in. And the reason why it became blighted and 90% of the money went out of our community is because we didn't have anything to buy. You know, all of those convenience places that we used to own, urban renewal and stuff like that, wiped out our commercial strips. And so we didn't have anything to buy in our communities anymore. And all of a sudden, 90% of the money that we produced went directly out of our community. And as I was working in Detroit, I'm glad Malika's on the phone. $1 billion, we found that $1 billion a year was leaving Detroit to buy groceries. $1 billion a year was leaving Detroit to buy groceries, not cars, not houses, but groceries. And all the major grocery stores left Detroit. And we didn't have an answer. We didn't have co-ops. We didn't have farmers markets. We didn't have what we're talking about today. And it was devastating to Detroit, and it still is. So I just wanted to share that, piggybacking on what Erica was saying as well. I want to start off by just giving you some data. I served on the Federal Reserve Advisory Board for 3 years. I was appointed by President Clinton when he was integrating the Federal Reserve and the banking system. I was chosen and selected by him and recommended by him to sit on the Federal Reserve board. It was shocking to me. I felt kind of out of place. I was the only Black that was on the advisory board at that time for the Midwest area. And one of the last assignment I got when I was there was the EBT system. The president, the Midwest, gave me this pamphlet, gave me this booklet, and it was called Electronic Benefit Transfer System, the EBT system. I was really kind of set back because I was wondering why he was giving me this technical system to look at. And he said, I want you to look at it because you represent the largest Medicaid provider in the state of Michigan. And Lou, I want you to give us a report and give us some advice on this new system. And what the thing that I want to bring out is that we look at it as a card, a food stamp card, but sitting on the Federal Reserve Bank, which basically created this electronic system, I realized that it's a system. It was designed to do several things. It was designed to take social dollars and put them into a electronic funds. And when you do with electronic funds, it's easy to move and transfer money around. So that was the reason, that was the system that it is. It takes social dollars, like the food stamps we used to have, with paper, and made food stamps put into electronic funds. And it was designed to put all social services into electronic funds. It started off with the food stamps, but eventually it's going to go into all the social funds. And it had three legs. One, it was supposed to help the farmers, which we know, and it was supposed to bring nutritious food into underserved communities. But the third leg that people don't talk about, that I want to talk about today in terms of what we're doing, the third leg is that it was supposed to create community-based enterprises. That was the purpose of the original purpose of the EBT system. And again, they talk about how it helps the farmers and also talk about the nutrition values of it, and that's important. But they don't talk about how it's supposed to create social enterprises in underserved community. And I say that to say this. Right now, 80% of the money that goes through the EBT system, 80% of that money goes into national supermarkets and corporate farms. They get 80% of that money. It goes directly into them. The 20% is still kind of is going into the community, but it's going into the community in terms of liquor stores and gas stations and some of the food systems that we have in our community. And that's a problem because those liquor stores used to be community grocery stores. But if we look at it now, they are liquor stores, and basically you can get tobacco, you can get snacks, you can get high sodium items in those stores, and very few, no fruit, hardly at all. And when I talk with them in Detroit about the transformation, they said that the shelf life of fruit, the reason why they don't have fruit and vegetables in those convenience stores anymore is because the shelf life is so short and they can't make money off of it. But they can make money off of the liquor and the tobacco and the snacks that they serve. And so there lies a problem. The other data that I want to share with you is that $9 billion a year of federal food dollars, $9 billion comes into Florida every year for community-based food system, and like I said, 80% of that goes directly to the national grocery store. The other thing I want to share with you is that we have emergency food system in our communities of color, and it's supposed to be for emergency purposes, to supplement people that's hungry and don't have food. and we created food banks, and we created the, uh, the food project on the emergency food, and that's what it was supposed to be, but it has not remained that. Now I know in Newtown where I'm at, we have emergency food at our Boys and Girls Club, at our thrift stores, at our churches, at our um, uh, federal housing projects, at our schools. And so our community is just inundated with what they call what was supposed to be emergency food is now has taken over the food system in our underserved communities. And that has been devastating in terms of us creating community enterprises like food co-ops and Ebt Farmers Market. Um, so I just wanted to share that data with you before I go directly into my presentation. Um, how did we get started with the Ebt Farmers Market? First of all, it was the chat had a what we call our community health initiative task force. They came up with a research, and they found that we was a food desert. They identified us as a food desert, and part of the solution was to set up and create a farmers market. And but they didn't have a organization to do it. And so we created a advocacy group called the Newtown Nation, and we agreed to set up the farmers market. And so we set up the Ebt farmers market. We was able to get capital with the Martin Luther King Day of Service. They was giving out grants for $4,000 or $5,000. And so I think we put in for 10,000 and got 10,000 because they was really impressed with about the concept of a farmers market. So we was able to get capital from the Martin Luther King Day of Service. The other thing we was able to do was build relationship with University of Florida Extension, and they liked the fact that we was creating a community farmers market, Ebt Farmers Market, and they helped us get the Ebt system, which is a portable electronic system, so that we can capture those food stamp dollars. And so I want to thank the University of Florida for helping us. And then we got a banner. We got one of our members to go out and reach out to a graphic company, and they designed a banner. And the banner was important because it was colorful and beautiful, and people were able to look at it, and we were able to display it. And so we created a banner. Another thing that happened was we had one of the community guys who was second generation fruit man, what we call the fruit man in our community, Al, who also had a small farm. And he helped us because we didn't have any experience about setting up a farmers market. And so he came in and showed us how to set up and how to display it and make it look beautiful and pretty. And he came in as a partner with us, and that's how we got started with the fruits and vegetables that we was able to have. We work with the CRA office. I was telling anybody that you're going to do a co-op or you're going to do a Ebt farmers market, you need to have the the CRA office to work with you because they have funds, and also they provide a space for us to set up the Ebt farmers market. And we had to go and meet with the community to get a buy-in to let them know why we was doing this. But it was already kind of taken for granted because it was in the Community Health Initiative Task Force research. And then once we got all of that together, we made an announcement, and it was well received by the community, and we was off to the races. Um, the next thing is why an Ebt farmers market? Why is it important? Why is it important to underserved communities? Why I think it's so important? because it's easy to start. You know, you don't have to have a whole lot of capital. You don't have to have brick and mortar. You don't have to have federal ERISA laws and stuff like that. It's easy. It's an easier start. Something to start up. Low capital. Again, we got money from Martin Luther King Day of Service, and the CRA gave us some funds. So we didn't need but $10,000 basically to get started. It's community control. Right now, we have people from public housing that we train, and they're basically running the Ebt Farmers Market over in Newtown, Sarasota. And we were able to capture those social dollars, billions of dollars. I say $9 billion a year, federal dollars come into the state of Florida. And if underserved communities don't have a vehicle, those federal social dollars would go straight through your community.
Lou,
So
we have your slides here, so just so everybody can understand and then put together what you're saying. Here's your slide of the farmers market. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, then
we got started.
That has the diagram.
The CRA office. That was in the CRA office when we first got started. Again, it's good to have their support. We also tied into healthcare organizations because the farmers market deals with nutrition, and in underserved communities, we have serious health problems, especially with the pandemic that's going on now. So we brought in some healthcare partners, and also Whole Foods reached out to us. They was and became a community partner with us. They were concerned about how they could bring nutritious food that they have in high income communities into underserved communities. So they were a good partner for us to have. And now we're working with home delivery with Tangelo Foods. They are a good partner because they bring resources that we didn't have. Computerized food buying system that Tangelo has, and now we're looking at home delivery to our seniors, because many of them are ill and not able to get out and get their produce. And the farmers market also is like Erica talked about. It's a community gathering place, or what we call a community hub, where our leaders, our political leaders, our church leaders, and political leaders, and community leaders come out to the market, and we have some lemonade or whatever, and buy some apples or whatever. But we gather and we talk about the business of the day and how we move forward on other projects. So it has become a gathering place. And the other thing is that it creates a market for small and minority farmers. As we work with University of Florida to create minority farmers and our Latino farmers, once they develop them, they have to have a market to distribute to. And right now, the school system, restaurants, they're not able to get into that market. So the Ebt Farmers Markets can open up a market for them. We need them in terms of the produce, and they need us in terms of a market that they can bring their fruits and vegetables to.
Yeah.
And last but not least is that it's a fun place for people to hang out.
I'm sorry, I put your diagram up here so people can also understand.
Yeah.
So go ahead and they get the visual of it and how it ties into the dual eligible Medicare/Medicaid, which a lot of people don't understand that connection, Lou, and you've done it so good out there where you are. If you could just help the people on the phone to understand, from the yellow where it says the community Ebt Farmers Market down to the blue, and how you worked with Blue Cross and Florida Blue Cross and Blue Shield to, and there was an article that came out recently. I don't know if you all saw it, a study from a school in North Carolina where they showed the direct savings when people utilize the dual eligible Medicaid and Medicare, how money is saved through SNAP. So Lou and his team has done an excellent job of connecting that. So Lou, if you could just touch on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that out. Yeah, that's a diagram of where we're going and kind of where we're at now, but where we're going. We identified in low-income areas what we call dual eligible, people who are seniors, but they also are low income. And that's a market that the big insurers are trying to wrap their arms around, but they don't know how. Keep in mind that that's a high risk market. So if I'm Blue Cross and I want to go and with a product, what we call dual eligible, which is Medicare and Medicaid, I got to go cautiously because I know that that's a high risk market. People have diabetes and other underlying health issues. So they have to put components in there to cut into that risk. And the two things we convinced them in terms of working with us is that you got to have an exercise program and you got to have a nutrition program. And they agreed with us. We're now working with Health and Human Services as we looking at duplicating this across the whole southern region in underserved communities because of the urgency of the coronavirus. And the healthcare, the exercise component, we looked at the exercise component, and we said it can't be just regular exercise. It has to be something that ties into the culture. And so I said, in Newtown, we got 40 churches, and every senior got a church. It's not if they go to church, it's what church they go to. So they're very spiritual. So we incorporated a spiritual exercise. We originally called it gospel size. But now there's a new international exercise program, spiritual exercise program that's sweeping the world, really. It's called Jerusalem. And so that's going to be included in our physical part of our market, physical exercise in our market. Jerusalem, the international spiritual dance that they're doing, called the Dance of David. And the other part we're dealing with nutrition, they have what they call produce prescription, whereas we know that our seniors are not getting the nutrition and not getting the produce that's sufficient for their health. So we are designing a produce prescription where a doctor can give you a prescription, a synthetic prescription that you're getting, but also they can give you a prescription where you can get produce home delivered to your house based on your malnutrition and based on your immune deficiency. We're working right now with a federally qualified healthcare plan to do screening, where they will do screenings at our farmers market, and so that they can screen you for your deficiencies and also your immune deficiency, and then we can prescribe a prescription, not a synthetic prescription, but a actual produce prescription, so that we can have it home delivered to your house. And we are able to do that with our new partner, Triangular Food. And they've also proved that if 1/3 of that population that I just mentioned was on the program that I just described, the federal government could save $100 billion a year. So the federal government is very excited about the program, as well as all of the healthcare insurers. As we create this project for our underserved community. So I'm excited about that. And we're going to bring that through the Ebt Farmers Markets. And we could be able to do that through the food co-op that Erica also have mentioned to you. So we have to stop relying on government and other folks to solve the problems of our community. We have to take the leadership and design systems that we control and that will solve the healthcare problem, the food problem, and the economic problem within our community. I can go on as Erica knows, but I'm going to cut it off at that point and wait for questions and answers. We always end our meetings in our community by saying, whoever feeds you controls you. So you need to take control of the food that goes into your body and also the food that comes in your community and create the system that you would like to see. Yeah.
Yes.
And thank you. And I want to thank you for allowing, and again, we're going to ask the federal government to put that 20% of those EBT dollars that are now going into liquor stores and gas stations. We're going to ask them to do an executive order so that 20% can go directly into creating food co-ops and Ebt farmers markets in those underserved communities, and have it go through organizations like the Florida Food Policy Council, so we can distribute it to those communities. So I want to thank you again for allowing me to come out. I love talking to you guys, and you guys are doing some exciting things.
Lou, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we were so honored and appreciative to have you speak from your experience, and also Erica Hardison. There was a few questions before we go further. Natalia asked, hey, Natalia, she says some places don't accept EBT and SNAP. Not all farmers markets do, and that's true. So how do you deal with that in your community if you are trying to do this and you find that they don't accept the EBT and SNAP? And then she also goes on to say some places call themselves farmers markets, but don't actually have a fruit or vegetable stand. And you had mentioned that on our last call, how to work with food banks in this emergency setting is taking away from taking away from the work that's being done around community EBT farmers markets. So if you want to talk a little bit about that, one, that not all farmers markets accept EBT and SNAP, and what about the farmers markets that are calling themselves that but don't have fruit and vegetables?
Yeah, that's an issue. I know in Palmetto, it was an issue in terms of them setting up. They were not able to get with the farmers. That's why we got to work collectively. That's why the Florida Food Policy Council is important, and also my council, the Manasota Food Action Council, so that we can stop that from happening. We can work with university. I'm meeting with there's a new head dean of the extension for University of Florida, a man, an African American gentleman, and we're going to be meeting with him so that we can work with those farms that they're developing, so that they can set up with these co-ops and also with the farmers markets. Because when you set them up, it's hard to find farmers who want to, who want to participate. Yeah, the other answer to your question is a lot of times our communities don't have the resource, Erica. You know that. They don't. That's why your council and my council are so important. We can provide those resources. We can call, and I can call the regional office of the USDA and get EBT portable system put into those farmers markets in the community. Because we got those resources and contacts. And we also got the contact with the Fresh Access Buck, where we can turn those EBT dollars, we can do 2 for 1 with those fresh access bucks. Once we get the EBT system in, the next level is to get that those fresh access bucks authorized, so that when you go in there and pay $20 for fruits and vegetables, we can give you another $20 on the fresh access buck. Our
Yes.
council got those resources, and that's why you and I are so important. We can preside. We're talking to these people and building those relationships, and we can provide those resources.
Yes, and then Aurelie asked a great question about how can people, if they want to start a community EBT farmers market, how do they start? And also if you could put information about yours in the chat so people can check into it. Thank you, Aurelie. That's a great question. What if some other community says, hey, we need that, and that's our demographics and our population? Where do you suggest they go to get started?
We're in a position now between with you and myself, and now we got contact with the regional office of USDA and also with the Health and Human Services, that we can go into those communities and give them the framework, how to set it up, make those phone calls, put the resources together, tell them how to get set up, tell them how to get money from the Martin Luther King Day of Service like we did. And it should be, like I say, we need, between me and you and our two councils, we can design a booklet, not only booklet, not, I don't just want to give you a booklet, but we can send a team out to help you get set up. All we want to find people that want to do it. And if you want to do it, we can help you. And we got the resources now to get the funding, to get the EBT system put in there, to get the double back, the bucks. Now we got tie into University of Florida Extension, the dean. We can now put farmers into your market. We got Daniel Food. They can come in there and set up a computerized system that do home delivery to your folks. We got all the components now. So if you want to do it, let me know or let Erica know, and we'll put the team together in that area and help you get started and help your community understand how to get started.
Yes, and thank you for that. And there's an excellent question from Emma in the chat, where she's asking both you and Erica Hardison. And Emma, why don't you come off mute, please, and go ahead. I don't want to speak for you. It's an excellent question, and I'd like for them to hear it from you directly.
Yeah, thank you guys for your presentations. They were really informative to me. I'm trying to become more involved with food policy in general because I work on a farm in Fort Myers, and we sell at some farmers markets. But well, one thing I noticed is that there aren't as many farmers at the farmers market. So I wondered, in terms of starting an EBT farmers market that has something like fresh access bucks, do they need to be spent? Does that money need to be spent on Florida grown produce from local farmers, or can the fresh access bucks be spent on just any fresh produce? That's just something I wasn't sure about.
Yeah, it has the fresh access bucks have to be spent on Florida grown produce, but your EBT can be spent on just fruits and vegetables, period. But if you want to use the double bucks, it has to be Florida. That was the purpose to help Florida grown farmers.
Thank you for that, Lou. Erica, and if you wanted to add anything, please come off mute.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to chime in with Emma's question. And so there's like Lou was saying, there's EBT, which can be spent on any produce, but when you double the bucks, you get tokens that can be spent on specifically Florida grown produce as well. So it's kind of a hybrid, because you're spending your regular EBT dollars, and then you're also spending those other I think they come the Florida fresh bucks as well.
Okay, thank you. That's great. I guess I'm wondering if that's a challenge sometimes, if there's like a limitation when there aren't as many farmers at the farmers markets to buy that Florida grown produce from, or if that's just something in my area.
Yeah, it's an issue, but we're working with universities of Florida to solve that because they're developing small and they're going after the veteran population, the young people to go into farming, and as they create and develop those farmers, they need to have markets, and so we came to them and said, look, we need farmers, and your farmers need a market. So it's a good marriage, and we don't need to be working separately. We should be working as a team to get those farmers a market where they can sell those products. And so you're dealing with the EBT system, that's electronic funds, and there's some great things you can do with the EBT system with electronic funds. And we're working with the state and we're working with the federal government and saying, look, we want to design some innovative projects with electronic funds. And it hasn't even been tapped. The EBT system have the capacity of the EBT system with electronic funds have not even begun to be tapped in the innovative things that can be done. And I know that because I have created, I have designed, and that's the good thing. The good Lord put me at that table, put Maddie's boy at that table to see that. And with the
Yeah.
with this new phone system that we got, this Android phone system. The Android phone system went out when we created the EBT system. Okay. Now you take this Android phone system that can do everything, and you got this electronic fund system that haven't been even tapped in. The innovative things that we can do in our community, Erica, is off the chain. It haven't even been
Yes.
touched. We
As it
haven't even scratched the surface. And then check out this. Our folks get automatic every month. They get, if they in the EBT or food stamps, they get $200 per month of electronic funds. Erica, that's a banking system.
yes.
You don't
And
need we can tie that into your farmer, your co-op. We you got electronic automatic deposit into our
yes.
community every month that we're not even tapped into.
So that brings me to my question for the two of you. One, we know that the rollout of these programs are not always the best, right? Around outreach and marketing and educating the community around what's out there and what's available for these programs. I want to ask you two, and I'd like to hear from you both. With all this money now, with the American Relief Bill and Justice 40, around 40% of the funds for clean energy and environmental justice money around marginalized communities, which we know environmental justice and food justice is inextricably linked. So how do you all think we can go about getting that money for these type of programs? And I'll start with you, Erica Hardison, with cooperatives. There's a lot of money out there being thrown around. How do we get our hands?
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. For me, it's really about exactly what I talked about. It's about cooperating and connecting with people who share our like vision and want to do the work. And so it's really like we have it. I mean, I'm looking on the call. There are people from South Florida, from in the Panhandle, and all these different areas. And it's really about us using our collective power and knowledge to connect with one another and say, like, I have this skill, or I know about this opportunity, and you have this skill. How can we work together to benefit each and every one of us in our communities? And I think once we start there, things will start to roll. Another thing is exactly what the Florida Food Policy Council is doing. I think Areli put something in the chat in terms of licensing, and some of the barriers or challenges that might be out there for different farmers or stakeholders in the process. And we need to start breaking down some of those barriers. Some of them is just the lack, of information that is getting into the communities. The other part of it is once the information gets there, what technical skills are available and how can people be allies and work um, with communities and have communities in the lead. And cooperatives are a great place to start doing that and actually give people a chance to lead and take ownership and learn the processes so that it's not just held in this vacuum. And, someone, I forget who put it in the chat, but who talked about, there are farmers markets that say they're a farmers market and there is no produce, no fresh fruit, no vegetables, nothing that people can buy like that. So we need to really start, again, working cooperatively, breaking down some of the barriers through policy and really getting in the information through outreach into our communities. And I'll let Lou go, sorry.
I can't wait to jump on this. I've been doing this, as Malik would tell you, I've been doing this. I'm the grandfather. I've been doing this since Clinton was president. Yeah, you got to lobby. That's why you got councils, because we can lobby and we can meet with. Right now, I'm meeting with 4 federal government departments, and they're listening to us because they don't have a clue. And we have to. The ball is in our court, and the reason why it's in our court is that I'm the head of the 2-county food system, council. You got Erica over the state for food council. We got ties into the University of Florida. We got 2 vehicles. See, I would tell folks, you can't rent a race if you don't have a horse in it. We got Erica. We got a food co-op, and we creating food co-op. That's a vehicle. That's a horse in the race. And if you don't have the funds right now to do a food co-op, a full-blown food co-op, we can create a community Ebt Farmers Market. So you got a horse in the race. Before, we didn't have a horse in the race. We were just complaining about the problem. Now we got the solution, and we got the vehicle, and we got the contacts, and the money by the trillions is floating around. This is the biggest anti-poverty program in the history of America. And we're asking for that 20%. That's, if we're looking at Florida, if we can get 20% of the federal dollars that's coming in here now, that's over 900 million to set up programs that we're talking about right now. If we just got 10%, we asking for 20. But if we got 10% of that $9 billion that's coming into Florida every year for federal food dollars, and 20% just sitting around, we just ask for that to be put in the program. That's what 10% is 900, my math is bad, $900 million we would have to do these programs. The Fresh Access Buck just got $4 million to create fresh access programs in underserved communities. So the money is there, and we got the product. We got the program in order to receive those funds. So if we continue to work and have a legitimate plan that makes sense, the funds are there. It's more than enough money for us to do what we got to do. Like I said, I'm still hanging on that 20%. If we can get 20% of the federal food dollars to come into the state that go into community food system, that's more than enough money to do what we got to do. And
thank you. We're gonna take one or two more questions, then wrap it up. So anybody have any burning, pressing questions for our panel? Either you could come off mute or put it in the chat, but please feel free as we wrap it up. Aurelie, I think you may have had something. Please come off mute.
Yeah, hey everybody. Sorry, I've been, trying to be multitasking, but I've been listening in and I just love everything that Lou and Erica are doing. I did ask, I think Erica touched on it a little bit when you were answering your the previous question, just working with different stakeholders and the different needs of the stakeholders that might want to participate. And I maybe just touching on how you all collaborate with different partners, like what are some of the practices or procedures that have helped this work grow and continue based on collaboration and partnerships? Like what are some of the key things that have helped, supported, and yeah, helped it make it bigger and better and continue?
I can go ahead. And I saw your question, really. It was just hard for me to get it all through the chat. So in terms of what experience do I have, like connecting with small farmers? I would say the challenge with small farmers is really getting a core group, because just like with anything, you need momentum. And so getting connected to all the small farmers. And one of the things that we've talked about with some of the farmers is getting just a database of these farmers, because especially since the pandemic, things have kind of ebbed and flowed, and there have been some that we've been really connected with, and then we find out that they're no longer operating and things like that. But our goal is always to work with local and small farms, and we can do that with different programs and education programs throughout cooperatives. And it's also, like I kind of touched on, cooperatives can be in any sector. So I would say, like, my sector is the grocery store sector, but when we're talking about farmers, we need people and farmers to connect to make farmer co-ops. So that the great thing about co-ops is that not one person is not working on all parts of the problem, but everybody is working on a solution to the problem. So in things like, I know you asked the question about transportation, licensing, and having processing. That's where things like food hubs, and I'm not sure, I don't want to like open up a whole nother rabbit hole when we have 9 minutes. But when we talk about food hubs and how farmers can share services in a central location to kind of eliminate some of those barriers. And that can be done through a cooperative model and can be done with the help of co-ops. I'm trying to cover everything. In some ways, are there specific requirements for them? And I need you to elaborate on that. Are you talking about in order to sell at a co-op, or can you elaborate more on the specific requirements?
In terms of the additional things that you say you do at the co-op and or at the Ebt Farmers Market, so like bringing different partners to support with nutrition education, or is there like, maybe it's a little bit different for the co-op because you have the members that may be doing some of those things already, or are you also partnering up with other community organizations to do those?
No, the latter. We are also partnering with other community organizations to do those. So that's the beauty of a co-op, is that we're building a network within. So when someone comes and says, well, I want to do this, but I don't have XYZ resource, then the co-op looks and sees where the resources are and how we can help members. Or, I mean, if we can't help, like in the case of farmers, like I said, there are different sectors and different businesses. in terms of a co-op. So when we use the word co-op, a lot of times people think of a, grocery store, but there are other ways. I mean, there are farming co-ops there. I mean, we have a Florida fruit growers co-op here in St. Petersburg. And so that's a bunch of people who have grown fruit and gotten together to do that. So it's really about helping people find the resources to get that done. And I hope that answers your question in terms of specifics.
Yes, definitely. And I think Lou was going to say something too, but I was just thinking how much this speaks to our need to have like a resource database by region or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's an exciting time to be doing what we're doing, because I'm tied into statewide networks, regional networks, and national networks, and we're talking 24 hours. I get up in the morning, may have 20 messages from across the country about what's going on in Washington, what's going on regionally. That has pushed us at a warp speed to deal with this. But what, like Erica was saying, the farmers, we're trying to put them in cooperatives and create a food hub. Small farmers can't compete with corporate farms, because if I got 100 acres, I'm gonna go up against a farmer that may have 2,000 acres. And so I'm gonna always lose out every time. But if I'm part of a co-op, I can walk into a room and I'm representing 10,000 acres, because I'm representing 20 farmers, and I can bid on projects. I can, if we got a food hub. Now I got transportation, just like the corporate farm got transportation. I got logistics, and just like they got. I may be one farm, but I'm tied into maybe 20 or 60 other farmers, and now I can compete. And as Food Council, we're constantly at the table, open up markets, saying, look, we want a piece of this farm to school program. I want 10 to 20% of that. I want 10% of the food stamp. I want to put 10% of this new WIC program that's coming out, and I want to put my small farmers into the co-ops, and then I want to take them and put them into the Ebt Farmers Market, because we at the table designing that. But it's exciting times, and you got the University of South Florida who would come in there and do a lot of this, and then we're working with health providers, because see, food is nutrition, and the model that I talked about, they know if they tied into a nutrition program, they can save $100 billion. So you got a healthcare organization like Blue Cross, and they call me every day, want to cooperate with us with screenings and doing health fairs and bringing in mobile units to our facilities. But it's there, the resources are there. That's why food councils are important. The resources are there.
Right. And I think, Lou, you made a very good point. And individually, if you're a small farmer, it's hard to compete. And I never like to use the word impossible, because I think there are so many possibilities out there that just need to be discovered. But together and cooperatively, like you said, you can compete. You have just as much power together as that larger or corporate farm. And so it's really about getting people or getting farmers and getting organizations to really band together cooperatively to work locally to make it happen.
Yep.
Well, thank you all so much again. This was an incredible discussion.
I'm exciting. It's exciting.
So thankful to have the opportunity to participate in these, and to have people such as Lou and Erica to give their expertise and provide a scope into the work that they're doing. So again, thank you to all. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Kendra to wrap it up for us. So again, thank you to our incredible panelists. Kendra?
Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you, Lou and Erica, for your fantastic presentations. Just incredible to hear about the work that you're doing and how you're facilitating connections throughout Florida and beyond. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. Without you, we wouldn't do what we do. So please consider supporting us by becoming a member. Next month, we will not be holding a normal forum. It is December, so we're going to be holding our annual members meeting. So if you would like to join us, become a member. It's only $25 for the year. And your membership goes directly to doing these kinds of programs, sustaining our work, our website, and enabling us to continue to connect and better the food system. Or if you don't want to become a member, but you do still want to stay involved with what we do, please follow us on social media. You can share what we're doing. And we also love volunteers. So if you want to get more involved as a volunteer, or if you're a student and you want to do an internship with us, please reach out to us. Our email is info@flfpc.org. And thank you again for being with us today.
And also, if you all have any topics that you'd like to see us address for the upcoming year around these type of discussions, anything related to food in Florida and ways we can all work together to build resilient communities, send us a note. Let us know what you'd like to see us talk about in this upcoming year. With so many things going on around food and different issues, we should not have a shortage of topics. So if anyone's interested in presenting and speaking and maybe having someone that they know present, please reach out to us as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you all
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
See you
everyone.
next time.
All right.
Be safe.